Today on Trucks, Stacey and I put the whoa in our classic 66 pickup with a front disc brake upgrade. While we're at it, we'll help it handle the corners by bolting on a brand new suspension kit. Then it's time for a little Viva Las Vegas as we take you for a tour of the 33rd annual SEMA Show in the City of Lights. After that, it's back to the shop to fit Big Orange with a roll bar and lamps for those nighttime trail rides. That's all today on Trucks.
Hello everybody and welcome to this week's show. For all you guys who drive older trucks probably notice they tend to have more go than whoa. Our old 66 here definitely falls into that category, so we're going to put a stop to that problem with a front disc brake upgrade.
But first we're going to get a handle on things by upgrading the suspension. That way we can drive down the freeway at speed without feeling like we're driving the Titanic.
We're going to use a kit from Brothers Custom Truck Parts that includes 2-inch drop spindles. That'll lower our center of gravity, improving handling and road manners. The kit also comes with tie rod ends, gas shocks, new coil springs, as well as upper and lower ball joints.
And once you have the wheels off, remove the stock drums, the hub and bearings, followed by the brake hardware. Before we can take off this backing plate, we need to disconnect the brake hose. Here's a tip. Put a vacuum cap over your hard line to keep the brake fluid from running all over the place. The last thing we need to do is remove these nasty old shocks.
You know, it's a good idea when working on older trucks to make sure you clean up the suspension from all the grease and grime that builds up over time. A few quarters at the local car wash usually does the trick.
Yeah, if you think it looks bad now, you should have seen it before I raided Mel's piggy bank. Now it's time to put a jack under the lower A-arm to compress the spring. Then you can loosen the ball joint nuts and whap the spindle with a hammer to free up the ball joint. The beatings will continue by using a pickle fork to separate the tie rod ends from the steering linkage.
Now you can pull the spindle, then you'll need to lower the jack to get the spring loose. Now as you can see, somebody put an aftermarket spacer in these springs to keep them from sagging, but these old boys are ready for the scrap heap.
As you can see, there's a major difference between the old stock spindle and the new one. And look at this. The tie rod arm is built right to the spindle for extra strength. And this, of course, holds a disc brake caliper. Now, I've gone ahead and sprayed everything with Eastwood's chassis black to prevent rust.
When you assemble your inner and outer tie rod ends, use the stock assembly as a gauge to get the alignment close enough so you can drive it to an alignment shop when you're finished.
Now, this is where a lot of how-toers get scared, but this is where you can really save some money. The stock ball joints are riveted in. Just grind the heads off, knock the joints out, then you can bolt the new ones on.
The lower ball joints are a little different because they need to be pressed out. If you don't have a press, take your lower A-arm to a parts store and they'll pop them out for about 10 bucks.
Hey Mel, if you're about done with those A-arms, we can put in the spring and spindles.
Let's do it, man.
Okay.
Watch yourself there. Got to get that jack under there. Keep coming, keep coming.
Okay, here you go.
Okay, let it down. You got it?
Yeah, go ahead. That's good.
Well, now that everything's bolted down, you can go ahead and grease the ball joints. You've got enough once the rubber caps start to pooch out.
Hey Mel, don't put the grease gun away. You need to hit these tie rod ends once I get them cranked down.
You got it, man.
And just by looking at this new hardware, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see we're going to have a much better handling truck without losing the cool factor of the old 66.
But remember, the suspension's only part of this project. We're also going to bring our classic ride into the 90s with a power front disc brake upgrade. But before we do, we need to take a break ourselves.
Stay with us. We'll be back with more trucks right after this.
Later in this show, it's off to Las Vegas for a look at some of the hottest trucks on the planet. But now that our Classic 66 will handle like a late model pickup, we need to be able to slow it down like one too. That front disc brake upgrade's up next.
Welcome back to the shop. Now that we have a new suspension, there's no way we're going to put these nasty old drums back on. These are history.
Speaking of history, older trucks are notorious for bad brakes, but Brothers Custom Truck Parts took care of that problem with their full disc brake kit that includes rotors, calipers, and pads, hoses, as well as a power booster and master cylinder. Now, the really cool thing about this kit is that it uses late model stock Chevy truck parts. So if you need to replace them, all you have to do is go to your local parts store.
Now, all new rotors are coated with a rust inhibitor that needs to be removed with a suitable cleaner. You also need to pack the new bearings. I like to use this neat tool from the Eastwood Company. Then tap in a new seal before you slide them on. Now, when you tighten down your outer nut, you want to put some preload on it. So tighten it until you feel a noticeable amount of drag.
Now, the real drag is going to come from the calipers that hold the semi-metallic pads. Once you have them in place, connect the new brake hoses.
Anytime you put on a new master cylinder, you need to bench bleed it first to get the air out of the cylinder. Now, I've unbolted the proportioning valve and I'm using the lines supplied with the kit.
We've lowered the truck so we can pull the old single master cylinder off that doesn't have near the volume as our upgrade. First thing you need to do is unhook the brake line. Disconnect the arm from the brake pedal and unbolt it from the firewall. Wow.
Well, that about sums it up, doesn't it?
I think so, man.
Not in the new Master's, a piece of cake. You just slide it into place and line up these bottom holes with those in the firewall. Make a mark for the top holes and drill them out. Once you've done that, it bolts right in.
Inside the cab, mark and drill the brake pedal arm. Make sure to watch your angle for clearance so it doesn't bind.
Now, chances are you'll need to bend some brake lines, but don't get nervous. It's very simple. This original line ran all 4 brakes. Now it's just going to run the rear.
For the front brakes, we'll use all new lines. Now, a cool trick is to use a coat hanger as a template for the proper length and angle of your lines. For tight bends, use a tubing bender to keep from collapsing the line. Now, on gradual bends, a set of fingers will do just fine.
It's important when doing brakes to use a double flare because a single flare won't seal well enough to keep from leaking. We're ready to run these lines. It's all yours, Mel.
Thanks, dude. Now, don't forget, the fittings are a soft brass, so don't over-tighten them or you could strip them. Add brake fluid, bleed the brakes, and you're ready to pull in the rings.
Now, since we had to put new wheels and tires on our old Chevy, and Dunlop just reissued their GT qualifiers, well, who can resist that? Add to that smoothies and baby moons that we got from Hunter's Custom Automotive in Nashville, and we're ready to rock and roll. Ow.
Hey, Stace, before we hit the strip, I think we better consider some paint and body work on this old boy.
I do believe it's time.
Listen, don't go away. We'll be back with more trucks right after the break. Boy, I'll tell you what, it really dropped it down nice.
Looks
didn't it?
good. So what color should we paint it?
Black.
Black?
Come on.
I can't paint it black.
Up next on Trucks, we'll take you for a tour of the largest aftermarket trade show in the country. It's the 33rd annual SEMA Show in the City of Lights.
We tie the racing technology in together with that OE experience and create the best, most easily installed, most efficient product on the market, and then put the image around it to really bring it to the customer.
The consumer today is looking to personalize the vehicle. The vehicles are a lot more rounded, means you have to style each piece to work directly with that particular vehicle.
Welcome to the 33rd Annual Specialty Equipment Market Association Show in Las Vegas, Nevada. SEMA is the largest trade show of its kind in the United States, and its 3,400 worldwide members are advocates for the industry players that provide today's drivers with the aftermarket products that'll turn their vehicle into a one-of-a-kind creation.
The consumer doesn't always know what all the options are, and what we're trying to do at Lund is get that exposure out there so they know they can take a good-looking truck and make it look a little better with a few pieces, and that's what we're all about.
We've got a complete package of new image products as well as new performance products, both exhaust and ride control. We're trying to put this whole thing as a package together, not just a system of parts, but a whole look, a whole image, tied together with our racing program, and we really got all the bases covered here this year.
Now, there's no doubt you'll see plenty of cool street rod and custom cars at SEMA, but Stace and I made the trip to check out what's hot in the light truck and off-road market.
Since we spend so much time in the dirt ourselves and have a serious need for speed, we couldn't pass this up. This truck is the 96-97 short course 4x4 world champion, and it's fitted with the new 98 F-150 body style. It's running a 440 cubic inch Ford SVO V8 that's kicking out 780 horsepower and 750 foot-pounds of torque. Dynamax Race Series headers and exhaust put the scream to this machine. Rancho Suspension collaborated with Douglas Motorsports to custom build the entire suspension. For ripping across the desert in relative safety, there's a full roll cage, 5-point racing belts, and the radiator is beside the driver because you can't finish the race without either one of those.
Well, from off-road to down the road, trucks have been a part of drag racing since Bill Golden slapped a Hemi in his little red wagon and started popping wheelies. This team Mopar Dodge is dominating the new NHRA Pro Stock truck class with numerous first-place finishes. The motivation for this missile is a 358 wedge-head Dodge V8 by Patterson Racing. It also runs dual Hawley carbs, a custom-made intake, headers, and exhaust that pump out over 900 horsepower. Shifting gears is a G-Force 5-speed through an Ace clutch. Finally, we end at the strange engineering rear end that allows this truck to chew up the quarter in just under 180 miles an hour.
Now it's time to put it into cruise. People are always saying it's a jungle out there, but leave it to a sport trucker to build the ultimate street prowler. This rolling masterpiece was born in '99 Chevy Silverado. Then they added 20-inch billet specialties wheels and Michelin tires. DGM suspension dropped the front 5 inches and the rear 7, and a Stoll grille puts teeth in the front. The paint is an amazing House of Colors 5-tone fade with a cool leopard flame stripe that changes to a custom scallop. The interior is a custom stitch, matching leopard and leather that'll have you purring down the boulevard.
How about from one extreme to the other? This '99 Silverado is a concept truck that Tonka is going to make into a toy. And with an 18-inch lift, nobody's going to have to worry about a high lift to change the oil. This thing rolls on 44-inch swampers and custom-made weld wheels. Smittyville supplied the front and rear bumpers as well as the roll bar, and it'll be hella lamps shining bright at night. Sickens Paint washed this beast in a red, orange to yellow fade, but the thing that really jumps out is every little boy's favorite name, and that's Tonka. But as far as we're concerned, it's the hook that dangles from a super winch that screams, "Take me out to play."
Trucks are great, but what happens when you want to take a bunch of friends and a dog up Mount Everest? Ford might have the answer with the Himalaya concept vehicle. This is a rugged, go-anywhere SUV that's based on the Expedition, but continues to roll with a 4-inch lift, worn winches front and rear, and a totally unique front bumper brush guard combination. The interior sports 4 Recaro buckets, and the whole roof is a sliding cloth panel to let the sun in or keep the rain out. The rear has a small pickup area for storing camping supplies, gear, or even a wet dog or two.
Of course, SEMA is best known as a showcase for all the cool aftermarket add-ons that are out there.
In the weeks to come, we'll feature some of the products that really caught our eye.
Don't go away. We got more trucks for you right after the break.
Up next on Trucks, we'll fit Big Orange with a roll bar and lamps to help show us the way after dark.
Welcome back to the shop. Just last week we gave Big Orange here some extra bite with a locker and some ground grabbing rubber. But let's face it, a truck like this just isn't complete without a big old roll bar.
And since we've always loved the look of Smitty built, we've decided to use their black double tube roll bar. Now I'm putting together the front main bar using the two side bars, the spreader bar, and this plastic insert. Slide in the 5-inch bolt to hold it together.
The rear goes together just like the front did. You want to make sure on the center bar that the 4 holes for the light tabs are facing upward and forward.
Next, take the little socket, put it between the 2 bars, and push the 2 bars together. Now tighten the bolt just enough to hold everything together so it doesn't fall apart on you. And once you get the other side done, you need to roll everything upside down.
Once you have it upside down, put on the base plates with the flathead bolts that come with the kit. Now you're ready to set it in the truck. This way you can mount the connectors and slide on the sidebars.
Next, square up the bar in the bed of the truck. Major tip, make sure there's no fuel lines or electrical wires in the way before you drill your holes, or you might be in for a nasty surprise. Bolt it down. Oh yeah, and don't forget to tighten everything else up.
Since we like to blaze trails at night, these KC daylighters we got from Choo Choo Customs will help show us the way. Installation's a breeze. Just mount the bracket to the bar and bolt them on.
I've already mounted the bracket for the light switch, and it's a simple 3-wire hookup. You have a ground, a constant power, and an auxiliary power.
While Stacey's working on the electrical, I pulled the old battery so we can upgrade to this equalizer that's got plenty of amps for those big old lamps. Not to mention, it's much more durable for banging around off-road. Here's a tip. Use a little Loctite on the threads to keep the bolt from backing off.
As you can see, somebody bent up these bars on some big old rocks. Mel.
It wasn't rocks, dude. Dang Hugo got in my way. So what we're going to do is put on a brand new set. Oh man, Big Orange is looking awful stout now. Why don't you kick on those lamps, Stace? Oh yeah, just like the sun rising.
But the sun hasn't set on this show yet. Stay with us. We'll be back with truck gear right after the break.
And now truck gear, parts, tools, and equipment for pickups and sport utilities.
Welcome back, everyone. It's time for this week's truck gear. Up first is something that should really pique the interest of anyone who uses their truck for towing. It's the Quick and Easy Receiver Hitch by DMI. It exceeds Class 4 certification, and the springs allow up to 4 inches of travel forward and backward, reducing wear and tear on your brakes, differential, and transmission under load. It also extends 7 inches from the frame and swings 12 inches from side to side for easy one-person hookups. For about $500, you'll never miss a hitch again with Quick and Easy from DMI.
Now here's an item from Edelbrock that nobody should be without. It's called Power Bond. It's a non-adhesive rubber tape that bonds to itself to form a solid piece of rubber. Now to apply it, you simply stretch it out and wrap it around the piece that you're fixing. This stuff shrinks just a little bit to provide an airtight, waterproof seal on wet, dry, and even greasy surfaces. You can use this for emergency repairs on hoses, fan belts, and it's UL listed so you can even do electrical repairs. For about $10 a roll, Power Bond is pretty cheap insurance.
Pretty cheap indeed. That's going to do it for this week's truck gear. Let's take a look at what Stace and I have for you on next week's show.
Stace and I begin the first of a 3-week series that'll turn Chevy's Extreme S10 into a muscle-bound sport truck. Wheel to Wheel supplies the kit, and we'll supply the shoehorn that'll stuff a donor LT1 under the hood. After that, we take you for a ride in the '99 Tahoe Z71 before putting brand new boards in a '48 Ford. That's all next week on Trucks.
Well, that's going to do it for this week's show. We'll catch you next week. Well, where'd you get all the quarters to do that suspension, man?
Found them.
Found them.
Yeah, I was going through my pants in the laundry and found quarters.
You don't know anything about that piggy bank?
Hey, I know what that means too, man. I wouldn't mess with your piggy bank.
I've had that piggy bank since I was like 6.
I know, it was really cool, man.
It was really cool.
Well, I've seen it around.
You just said you hadn't seen it.
Well, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I've seen it. I mean, you've had it here. Trust me, I wouldn't do anything to your
I
piggy
swear,
bank.
if you messed up that... All right, I'm gonna trust you. Every time I trust you, though, something bad happens to me, man.
Like what?
Like the distributor missing out of the truck, getting, you know, a prisoner in the tonneau cover. I don't know, man. All right.
Trucks is an RTM production.